So once individuals complete the form, the data is going to be submitted into a spreadsheet. So when they click on the Submit button, it's going to go into a spreadsheet. Now again, just to kind of review the architecture here, the students are given the live form, and when they press Submit, it's going to go directly into this spreadsheet. So all the data from that hurricane survey is going to go into an associated spreadsheet form. And again, looking at the icons right here, you can see that's going to be a spreadsheet, and that's going to be associated with a Google form. So the data, when we open that up, may look something like this. The question is how to get students to actually see this. So I'm going to first review a common problem so you can see what's going on, and then we can show how to correct that. So if, let's say, I wanted to give access to this data, well, I can go over here to my web page right here, and let's go ahead and do an embed command. So I'm going to say insert and go over to drive, and I'm going to put the spreadsheet in. So there's the spreadsheet, and if I click on this right here and say select, and I'll just leave the width blank so it'll go full width, and we'll save it. Okay, at this point right here, I can see the data fine. I think everything's looking great. The only problem is your students will come on here and they'll just see this as blank. And the reason for that is they haven't been given permission to see this, because by default spreadsheet data is going to be private. And that's because it's generally generated for the purpose of conducting surveys, and you don't want the whole world to be able to see the survey results. So if we look at the spreadsheet, in the upper right hand corner there's the share button, which we've seen numerous times before. If you click on the share button here, if I want to make it private just to a specific group, again, I could put in that group right here. So let's say I wanted this particular group, and I can click, and if I say I want them to be able to view it, then they would have those privileges. If, however, I want to make it simple as possible, I'm going to just change where it says private with only the people listed below, just myself, and I'm going to say anyone with the link can view. Now this is a pretty safe way to do this, because people are not going to stumble upon the web page simply because the URL is so unusual. But if I say save now what happens is that if somebody else logs in and doesn't read Norm Hare up here but reads somebody else, as long as they have a link to that, they will be able to see all of this data and be able to do the analysis. And one of the things that they can do individually at their own workstations, independent of others, is to look at the summary of the data. Well, where does that come from? Up here, if we click on Form, you can see that there's an option that says Show Summary Responses. So when we click on Show Summary Responses, that's going to open up a new tab, and here's the data that's in summary form. Now, some of the data is just going to be kind of appear somewhat random, like names of the individuals and the hurricanes and so forth. However, others graphable. And again, this data here is graphable simply because when the original question was phrased, it was done in a multiple choice fashion or a choose from the list fashion, which basically constrained the responses to certain options. So for example, the direction of the spin of the hurricane, they were only given 3 options in multiple choice. It's either clockwise, counterclockwise, or it didn't appear to rotate. And so if we look at this corresponds to a multiple choice question options, which again constrained the user to various different responses. Now, they can see this by simply going to that embed feature. However, if you want to make it more visible to them, you can find the URL for the actual summary data right up here. It's called View Analytics. And so if we copy it across, and we copy that URL, and we're going to paste that back into our spreadsheets. Let's go back over here. I'm sorry, into our web pages. So now I'm just going to say here, summary data, and highlight that, make a link, and then copy in the URL. That's a Command V or Control V, depending on your Mac or PC user. And once you save that, what we're going to be getting is that you're going to be getting a link here to that summary data. So I click there, and sure enough, we can see all of that summary data. And that's the easiest way to do it, because the students don't really have to have any knowledge of how to do it. They just have to follow the link to that. So again, those are some important ways to show how you can share the data, how you can embed the data in the into the websites and so forth. Now, one other thing to pay attention to is when you're in a spreadsheet, in a website that has a spreadsheet or database embedded in it, there's going to be an option at the bottom here, and this says to open the spreadsheet. And if I clicked on this, that takes me right back to this setting right here. So me as the owner of this can then go and say, oh, you know what, we need to actually change some of this stuff. Maybe this wasn't Hurricane Wilma, but this is Hurricane Wilmat or something. And by changing that right there, I can do all of the things I could normally with this spreadsheet, and that'll be reflected across everybody's spreadsheet because I'm the editor. If I want my respondents to be able to correct information at this point right here, they would have to have editorial privileges. And even though they may be able to see that link, if I click under Share, they won't be able to edit it unless I change this. And again, changing it here so that anyone with the link can also edit. Now, if I save it at that point right there, then they have all editing privileges, and as long as they follow the link, then they can go in and they can make the changes. The downside of that might be is that there's anonymous changes, and if you're concerned about people anonymously putting stuff into a spreadsheet and so forth, then simply just go back here and say, you know what, I really want to make this here private, with only the people who have been given express permission can change it, and then I'd have to enter in the email addresses or Gmail addresses of those individuals. And the simplest way, again, is to aggregate those into mail groups and so forth within your Gmail. And then if you specify those right here as that name of that group, they'll just automatically all enter in there, and we can save and continue, and everybody be given access. Well, that gives you hopefully an overview of how to share the data with your students so they can see the results of the work that's gone on.